It's Wednesday, it's Celt Day. I'm Linda O'Reilly and I'm joined by my colleagues Damien Donoghue and Sean McMahon, and we're here to review today's newspaper. Quick look at some of our headlines. As you can imagine, it's largely election dominated, but there are some other stuff in there as well. We have Aintu to push O'Reilly for Dáil. Fianna Fáil big winners in ground zero of Sinn Féin demise. We have full count results, tallies, analysis, reaction and photographs from the local and European elections. Council remove almost 6 tonnes of illegal waste from Shantamon Hill. Celt Sports editor takes national award. Balturbet gears up for the county flag. And in sport, Cavan are ready to go again, says Graham, as they eye up Ulster final spot. And in our ACFL roundup, Den pick up a vital victory. We also have this week our free magazine, a 64-page tourism supplement. So plenty bang for your buck in this week's Anglo Celt. Sean, we'll start with elections and we'll try and take you through it as quickly as we can because I'd say people are beginning to get a little bit election fatigued at this stage. And there's plenty, as I said, of analysis, reaction, tables, counts, everything in this week's newspaper if you want more. But how are you holding up, Sean? It was a mammoth one.
We were just saying before we went on air that we're all coming back to terra firma there, I think, and we're getting our mojo back. It was pretty hectic, but we enjoyed it, of course. And as some people were saying to me, maybe it's the waiting around and a sense a little bit of tedium and boredom. But overall, we love elections and all that goes with it, and the drama and the excitement. Linda, and I know that you love it yourself, and you might have been tired for a day or 48 hours afterwards. But it is something special. It only comes around every 4 years. 5 years. I'm not fully compass mentis yet, I can see. That proves that.
Evidence.
Yeah.
But I suppose the big story in Cavan and indeed nationally was the demise of Sinn Féin. And to quote Pauline Tully, we didn't see this coming. And to be fair to her, I don't think anybody saw it coming, not to this extent anyway. I mean, in Cavan there were 4 sitting Sinn Féin councillors and 3 of the 4 lost their seats. Only Paddy MacDonald achieving re-election there in Ballybor, Cootehill. And a big shock from Cavan Balturbet area too, Sinn Féin seats lost there. So, I mean, did you see it coming, Sean?
Well, I sensed a little bit on the ground the canvass with Sinn Féin and the people going around canvassing, and even when Mary Lou came down to Cavan, I noticed it was fairly low key, and she was up in the Tullacamungan area in Cavan. While she got a good reception, I just noticed that even her own demeanour, it was fairly low key. And after maybe the elections in Northern Ireland and all, there may be a little bit of boredom or wearisome set in. But it's changed times in the Northern Ireland. I'd suggest that the Sinn Féin policies are perceived as a bit negative, and it's all about people calling for people to resign and why things are wrong and everything. I know they have policies. The only thing is they're not manifesting themselves in people's consciousness. And I was a bit wary of that on the campaign as well. They weren't getting that maybe across to voters. And another thing that they'll be annoyed about and they'll be soul searching is the voters didn't turn out in the same strength right across the country as they did in previous elections, Linda.
No, absolutely not. I think in the case of Sinn Féin and Cavan in particular, there's probably a couple of factors there. I mean, it's easy to say these things looking back with hindsight, but in Cavan and Balturbet, for example, there was a huge amount of candidates concentrated across various parties, particularly parties towards the left in the Cavan town urban area, and I think that in geographical terms would have split the vote to a large extent, which would be responsible to some extent for Daniel Downey losing his seat. And then when you go to Ballyconnell, where Damien Brady was, I know that CMETB school issue was a bit contentious one. It came back to bite him, unfortunately. He was backing the proposed closure of the St Birkins and St Mogue schools in Bonboy and Balturbet in favour of that proposed new school in Ballyconnell. He still feels that was the right decision and stands by it, but it seems to have come back to bite him. So they're very local issues or geographical reasons why it happened there. But then when you look to Ballygymstuff, where we had an Aintu candidate, and Ballybor Cootehill, the Aintu factor seems to have been there for Sinn Féin, certainly.
Sinn Féin kind of nearly held that position. The the opposition position in the last local elections, whereas I think people weren't that maybe overly impressed with what they produced from it, and it just goes to show that, you know, you've got to be showing your work all the time, and I'm not sure that Sinn Féin councillors done enough of that. Show their work. Like you're right on the Damien Brady, and even it nearly cost Peter McVitie. You know, he stood on it, and that came very close to it. So the interesting thing for me as well was that the transfers weren't as party loyal as I remember, which again shows people are voting more so for personality than party. And I don't think that's location, geography. Yeah. I don't think that's a bad thing personally.
I think that comes to the fore in local elections, Damien, because you will know your local candidate, and it manifested itself big time in Belturbet with Brendan Fay. The 10 years since there was a local councillor in Belturbet, Anthony Vesey was the last representative on the council from the Belturbet area, and Brendan Fay mounted a brilliant campaign, and the school issue really came to the fore there, and he was full square behind the retention of St Brickens and Belturbet. And Peter McVitie did get over the line in the end, but in an interview with myself he was just saying that to some extent that the school did impact on his vote, and maybe at one stage he thought it might have cost him his vote, but he's steadfast in staying with the issue, and he says that he believes that a modern college in Ballyconnell is what is needed. So fair play to them. They're standing by the stance that they took prior to the election, and it'll be interesting to see how that'll outwork over the coming years.
I thought just on Brendan Fay, I thought his line of "Make Belturbet Great Again," I thought it was brilliant. A wee bit of genius, marketing genius.
And even the simple thing that his wife thought of, I think it was Eilish thought of it, vote Fay in May, and that it up on Facebook. It was those little things that connected with the people.
It just goes to show how effective it can be done.
And he was telling me an anecdote, sorry Linda, that people were singing it in the pub when after a couple of pints maybe it was enhanced by that, but also outside the young ones on cars, if they weren't washed, they were doing it with their fingers, printing Fay and May on the cars. So it had gone into people's consciousness.
That was brilliant.
There are PR gurus being paid a fortune out there who would do well to take a look at Brendan Fay's campaign indeed. And I'm sure the celebrations are still going on in the Widows' Barn in Belturbet, and will be this weekend with the County Fleadh taking place there, but more about that later. The other big story from the election, very much Sarah O'Reilly and her running for Aontú, topping the poll in Ballybor, Cootehill, polling less than 200 votes less than Niamh Smith for Fianna Fáil did in that area in the 2014 general election. The relevance of that being, of course, that Sarah O'Reilly was co-opted onto Niamh Smith's seat for Fianna Fáil, but due to a number of issues with the party, with party hierarchy, we understand it, and also with her own personal stance on abortion, she went independent and then joined Aontú. But an absolutely massive vote there for Sarah O'Reilly, over 1,700 votes. Do you think that's the Aontú factor, Sean, or is it for Sarah herself?
A lot of it is for Sarah herself. I know from doing stories with Sarah over the last few years, she is an achiever and she's got a lot of things done, and she's always on the front. As Damien rightly said, maybe Sinn Féin didn't showcase exactly what they were doing on the ground, but that's one thing Sarah was doing, and we know that in the paper here. There wasn't a week that she didn't have something in focus that she was either planning to do or had got done, and even she was using social media to put up there about footpaths, lights, or whatever the issue was, enhancement of lakes in Ballybor, or any other issues about dumping. Sarah is to the fore, and she has that likeability factor as well. She's cool and calm and easy manner, and that's easy or good for when you're going canvassing and meeting people. She's a very affable lady, and I think, as you were saying, I think rightly,
she stands by her principles too.
Yeah, by her principles. That's another
point.
Whether
you agree with them or not.
Yeah.
But what is very interesting now is the arrival of party leader Peadar Tóibín in the Cavan Town Centre on Saturday afternoon, and speaking to media, he's very much putting the main parties in Cavan and indeed nationally on notice that they are going to be out before in the next general election, strongly indicating that they would be pushing Sarah O'Reilly to run. Obviously there would have to be a selection convention, she'd have to agree and everything else. But then on the other hand, Sarah's somewhat the reluctant candidate. She doesn't want to commit to it. She wants to save her local election win. she said she's not thinking about the general election right now.
I can understand that she's voted in her own right and she got a massive vote, but I'd say the pressure will be on to go for the Dáil from the leader of Aintu. It'll be very interesting if she does. It'll make this next general election, we'd be looking forward to it with abandon, because she'll be pitted against Deputy Niamh Smith and all the rest of them up there, and the Fianna Fáil candidates, whoever else is running, and also the Fine Gael candidates. But it may certainly make for interesting times here locally. Two ladies going head to head probably.
I think it'd be very interesting because we've got 3 candidates now potentially from Ballyborough in Sarah O'Reilly, Niamh Smith and Senator Joe O'Reilly for Fine Gael, and also the fact that Pauline Tully is running for Sinn Féin, and it would be very interesting to see how she would perform given
against
Sinn Féin's given Sinn Féin's performance in this local election. I mean, it's fascinating. It's going to be
Sarah
very
and Aintu would be hoping to mop up some of the Sinn Féin votes and the softer Sinn Féin, and maybe some of the Fianna Fáil votes. I'm sure she got some Fianna Fáil votes as well, people that defected maybe to her.
Before we move on from elections, it would
just
be remiss of us not to mention Trevor Smith from Ballyjimstuff, outgoing councillor Paddy Smith's son, who topped the poll in the county.
Phenomenal experience by Trevor Smith, and I know Trevor over the years, and while working and interviewing his father, Trevor was on the scene and doing features in Ballyjimstuff area, a great community man, and as Damien rightly said earlier on, even if you're involved in the community and not on the council, you have to be doing work and be out there showcasing that you have the capacity to get things done, and certainly he showcased that earlier on. The other young man there that really came to the fore is Craig Lovett. I was very impressed by him, and he did a bit of jiving for us there on just a shot like that when we're taking some photographs, and that shows a candidate that's clued in, and the young people in particular seems to have taken a liking to him. Fianna Fáil there, I would suggest, Linda, have a good blend now. They've youth and experience. They go from Craig Lovett just in there, and of course Philip Brady is already in there, and it goes right across the spectrum to Sean Smith, who's 44 years on the council, so there'll be lots of youth and experience. The other factor is Fianna Fáil have the other 8 votes. It'll be interesting to see will the target go after Brendan Fay or Sarah now to get a majority on the council, and I would think that they will be talking to Brendan Fay and probably Sarah as well.
Yeah, and we should also briefly mention Patricia Walsh, who won back her seat in Cavan for Fianna Fáil. You're right, Sean, the makeup now. Fianna Fáil has 8 seats, Fine Gael has 7, Sinn Féin have 1, Aintu 1, and Brendan Fay Independent 1 seat. So absolutely, I think Fianna Fáil will be making the play for a majority there, and looking particularly to Sarah O'Reilly, who obviously was previously a Fianna Fáil councillor, and Brendan Fay there in Belturn.
And all his people have a great background in Fianna Fáil, and I think his mother is a great Fianna Fáil person. I was informed last night, and they go back a long time in Fianna Fáil. So I'd say he might be leaning in that direction, but he's a very principled man, and he'll be fighting on the issues that pertain to his town and all the areas. He's done very well in Butters Bridge, Killishandra, and out towards Ballyconnell as well, and Milltown and different areas. So he told me after the count that he'd be looking after them all. It'll certainly make for different times at the council, Linda, and different voices, and it should be very interesting for copy for ourselves.
The final thing on the election was just to the county council themselves, because being there for the entire weekend, the setup was second to none. I know I was listening in to Monaghan a lot through the Northern Sound end of it, but talking to other people around the country, they didn't have what we had in Cavan, with a separate media area, well controlled, everything well amplified. I thought it was brilliant, and all of the county council staff deserve huge credit. Yeah,
no, the technology held up was really good. We had no issues there.
Compliments to Arden Broadband. They supplied the broadband for a local Trevor band who'll be doing a lot of for the Flower over this weekend.
Are you getting paid for all these Belturbid links? I think Sean McMahon's getting paid. But on that note, yes, the council had a very good setup for the media, and we thank them for that. But I have to say that Joe Smith and Owen Doyle and Des Maguire and all of the counting staff there did a tremendous job.
Conor Harrington as well.
Absolutely.
And Ger Finn was there as well.
He could be here all day. But it was run very smoothly, very efficiently, everything double and triple checked, and when counts are run in that manner, it minimises, I suppose, the likelihood of a recount or of any legal challenges ultimately over seats that
And
were
the,
won.
and
So
the great
congratulations.
the great man with the pencil there, Michael Garrity, many's the campaign. He's figured out, and he was there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we could talk all day about elections, so I'm just going to fly through some of the other headlines in the paper once again to let you know that there is stuff in there that's also not elections. Of course, illegal dumping was something that came up on the doorsteps a lot in the local election campaign, and people will be glad to see on page 5 of today's Celt that one individual has been found guilty and convicted and faces a substantial fine and costs in connection with illegal dumping at Shantamon Hill. Now, although they couldn't pay all of the dumping on this individual, there were almost 6 tonnes of waste removed from there, and CCTV was used in monitoring the site over a period of 6 to 7 weeks. And during that time, the only individual that they saw pulling up and dumping rubbish at that spot was the man who was convicted. I'm not going to name him on this broadcast, but his name and photograph are in this week's paper. The judge said while they can't blame him for all of it, he's been landed with 50% of the bill anyway, and I think people will be happy to see that. We better say congratulations to our colleague Paul Fitzpatrick, who took an award at the local Ireland Media Awards last Thursday in Athlone. Our brilliant Paul won Best Sports Story for 2018, and you can read all about that. It was for, remind me Damien, it was the preview piece that he did for the club Ulster
final where Mullahoran were in, and just went back through some of the links, went all the way back, bringing it to politics, I suppose, to Johnny Wilson in the Dáil and the little note being handed to him. I know that this story has been rehashed up online again a few times. A lot of people are tweeting it, but a brilliant piece, well deserved, an exceptional
The headline
write-up.
was "Football, a family business handed down in Mullahoran." And being a Mullahoran mammy at this stage, with all of my children playing football from Mullahoran and wife, not originally from Mullahoran, I can say very much so, having moved into the parish, I can now see that football is number one. And if you're not involved in some way with the football, be it washing jerseys or playing yourself, I don't think the senior ladies will be ringing me anytime soon, but absolutely, it's very much embedded in the parish, and there are many families associated with it. So it's a brilliant read. It's on our website, well worth reading. I'd also like to congratulate Seamus Enright, who was nominated in the category for Best News Feature for a piece he wrote titled The Last Post, and it was following the closure of Carnegie Post Office. Another brilliant read, just missed out on the overall award. But there were over 520 entries.
Brilliant.
The best regional newspapers in the country, a really high profile judging panel, so even to be nominated is phenomenal.
The regional papers are still alive and well. Congratulations, Paul, and hopefully you'll bring luck to Cavan in the Ulster semi-final.
Before we start talking sport, because these two boys will be talking longer than we've been talking about the elections, we'll go back to Belturbet again, Sean.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in Belturbet this weekend at the County Fla. Are you going to be in Belturbet this weekend,
I will
Sean?
indeed. The singing voice is not great. I won't be busking, but I might meet you there doing a bit of busking or play the accordion or some instrument. I know all your family's going down, and you were talking about the Cayley bands. I enjoyed that competition particularly. Great to see young people participating and forming Cayley bands. It's brilliant, isn't it, Linda?
Oh no, absolutely. And we have a full preview of the Fla in this week's newspaper. It's incidentally 40 years since the County Fla was hosted in Belturbet. We've got some old photographs as well. Now the timetables were quite big to print, but we are going to be throwing them up on our website before the weekend as well. Full preview of the County Fla in Belturbet this weekend. And to be fair, Belturbet have gone all out. They seem to have planned a good programme of fringe events, kind of sessions, Cayleys, busking on the street, as Sean mentioned, to coincide with all of the actual Fla competitions themselves. So hopefully they'll be blessed with some good weather. It'll be a great weekend in Belturbet.
And all the town has been painted up, and that coincides with Brendan Fay being elected. There's a feel-good factor in the town as well, and we have a story in there this week about an information kiosk, so anybody coming to Belturbet can find out on their iPhone exactly what's going on, or check in at the kiosk on the Diamond or along the river as well. So Belturbet on the up, and plenty of positivity, and I'm sure everybody will enjoy coming to the town for the Fla.
Brilliant. And you're all gone football mad. I assume you'll be at the match?
I might go. I'll see. I don't know. I might have something else on.
Yeah.
No, definitely go. And I'm just thinking, when you're talking about the weekend in Biltorbit, wouldn't it be a brilliant Sunday evening? Cavan beat Armagh. You stop in Biltorbit.
Yeah, they can all come back to Biltorbit
on the way back.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be a brilliant Sunday on the bank holiday? Sure. It couldn't be better.
Yeah,
couldn't be better.
Wow. But actually, I was talking to Marty Morrissey, who was MC at the Local Ireland Awards last week, and he said he thinks Cavan's going to reach the Ulster finals. So Marty Morrissey said it.
And if Marty comes down, there'll be a hell of a party. Apparently, he does like the party.
And what do you think, Damien? Surely Cavan have to be the favourites.
Bookies have them down as favourites. I've read a number of national journalists that are stating that they believe Armagh are favourites, that they've a better forward line than Cavan. So, there's not going to be the opportunity for complacency, I'd imagine. I'd say Mickey Graham will have them ready to go, and I think we'll win it. I think Cavan are set up the right way to deal with the threat that Armagh are going to bring in attack. So I'm positive, I'm optimistic going down to it, and I think what it's going to bring back is the memory, Sean, of going to Clonus on a summer's day for big games. And I think there's huge crowd going. Like, everybody I'm speaking to is going down to Clonus on Sunday. People who aren't that big into football are still going. So
what time is that actually?
4 o'clock.
Yeah, and we have a full preview in this week's paper.
Loads of it. Michael Hannon does an excellent preview as well. Like he talks about how the game plan that Mickey Graham devised for the Monaghan game worked exceptionally well, and it was designed just for that Monaghan game. So he'll have something similar with a wee few tweaks in it to make sure it works for Armagh as well. So I think there's a great confidence in Mickey Graham's management, which is great to see around the county. So and then you've obviously Paul Fitzpatrick's own preview in it. There's a little bit, I think, from Jared O'Byrne's, the young fella in the middle of the field for Armagh, how he's talking about Cavan's Division 1 experience as well. So there's lots in it. If you're going to Clonus, the Anglo Celt will inform you duly of what's to be expected.
Are you heading from the flat to Clonus and Clonus back to the flat?
I would say so now, although Clonus is fairly near Biltorbit, it's only down the road. The one thing I would think, Damien, that Down didn't mark up against Armagh, and Down over the years from way back to the 70s and even the early 60s, the Down like to score goals and they play with abandon, and they don't tend to mark that closely, but that's something that Cavan will be doing. That's why I think Cavan will win, because they'll not give Armagh the space to do and particularly the high ball going in and fisting balls into the net and nobody on them. I think Cavan will be marked very closely. They'll also, with Martin Riley, they'll be able to transition very quickly, and the use of the foot pass by Cavan has speeded the thing up by as in direct opposition to the laboured passing across the field, and maybe 50 passes not going forward. Cavan have perfected that now, and if they can hold on to that, mark them closely, don't allow Armagh to score goals, I think they have a great chance of winning.
Well, you're right on, especially on the high ball. Raymond Galligan in goals is excellent under the high ball, but Porrick Faulkner there is super. So I don't see us conceding the goals the way Down did as well. On the opposite end, Armagh are susceptible under the high ball. Down got 2 goals with that as well. And Martin Riley, the aforementioned, is brilliant at fisting a goal. So, if it was a gambling man, Martin Riley's first goal, I think, is going to be the popular bet around Cavan this weekend.
And it's kicking the ball. He can send the ball to nearly a needle. Some of that passing was like what you'd see the Gooch doing or Brian Duhor. Wow. So that's brought a new dimension to the thing. If they can come out and do that, it's very hard to defend against good diagonal balls that's right to a player, no matter how good a defence is. And I think Cavan have the capacity to win by a couple of points.
You said 2 points. What margin would you say?
Yeah, I think it could be even a little higher, maybe 4.
I'm going to say 3.
All right. In the middle.
In the middle.
My expert opinion is going to say 3 points, so we'll have to wait until next week to see if any of us are right. Yeah. Hopefully we will be. But Damien, do you want to mention anything else in the sports section before we wrap up? 2
underage finals, the under 15 league finals, Division 1 and Division 2 reports and pictures are in it, and of course the Cavan Stages Rally, there's coverage of that in the paper, as well as some basketball and athletics as well. So lots across the sport. It's not just GEA, but there's plenty for the GEA lovers.
I know there's a couple of finals that did take place that are not in today's paper, but they are ready and will be in next week. We just were under tremendous space pressure with everything that was going on in the elections and everything else. So my apologies if you were expecting to see your match report or your final in this week's Celt, we haven't forgotten about you, and it will be in next week, absolutely. So plenty of reading there, and if you're planning on any staycations this summer, we have got actually former Celt journalist Sinead Hogan has been working on a 64-page magazine tourism supplement entitled Your Ireland, and it pulls out some highlights from all of the counties, certainly across the Midlands and North footprint, from Cavan to Meath and Mayo and everywhere in between, most of our sister titles actually. So if you're planning on any holidays this summer, certainly well worth a read. And I think that's everything. So we're 96 pages plus the 64-page supplement. We've all been working very hard in the past couple of weeks. So please do pick up the Celt on the way home and support your local newspaper.